The economy in The Mandalorian is terrible because the main currency, the Imperial Credit, is worth nothing. So how does the Mandalorian avoid this problem and actually get what he wants? Let's find out right now. Welcome, fellow comicists. My name is Greg, where learning economics is as easy as watching a TV show. In one of the early scenes of The Mandalorian, he has offered two different types of currency, a calamari flan and an Imperial Credit. He's offered 5,000 Imperial Credits, which should be a lot. I mean, after all, Luke sold his speedster for 2,000, and Han was trying to barter between 10 to 15,000, saying that that could buy him a new ship. Okay, so why does all of this currency stuff matter? Well, the Mandalorian actually needs a lot of stuff. He needs food to survive, he needs materials for his ship, and he also needs to get that Beskar metal, which is not only a sacred metal to the Mandalorians, it's also used to create their armor. So how does that currency become so devalued? Well, first let's look at what is a currency. A currency is usually a cheap paper or metal that is printed and created and given value by a government and a society. They agree that this is worth something, and it is used as a way to exchange for goods and services. So instead of me just saying, I'll give you an orange and you give me an apple, I just give you money and you'll give me that apple. So how does a currency actually lose value like we see in The Mandalorian? Well, currencies lose value from a couple of different things. One, it's hyperinflation. Basically, whoever is printing the currency, they just make a lot more of it and print a ton of it. Why is that a problem? Because then when you flood the world and your society with all this, all of a sudden you are creating a huge supply and there might not be as much of a demand. A second reason why a currency might become devalued is when there is a major natural disaster or a government falls. Now you can probably guess what happened. Because the government fell, the imperial government fell, all of a sudden people put a value in that a lot less because now the government that did put value in it is no longer there. So that's why the Mandalorian balks when he's offered 5,000 credits. Barely anybody wants that anymore. And that's also why the calamari flan, that type of currency, might be worth a little bit more to him. Anyway, he's offered another job from a person who appears to be a former Imperial officer who wants him to go after this 50-some-year-old asset, this bounty, this person, this thing. And so the Mandalorian does accept the job. So he goes off to this desert planet and he encounters an ally named Quill, who is willing to show him where this asset is, this bounty is, in exchange for the Mandalorian actually succeeding in bringing peace to his valley. Because the asset has been bringing so many bounty hunters there, it has just been chaos and destruction. He just wants it to end. This is an example of what people do once a currency falls and loses its value. It is the barter system. So that whole thing where I said I'll give an orange for an apple, this is kind of the same thing. The Mandalorian is offering his services and this guy says, great, I will show you where the bounty is. After the Mandalorian successfully gets the bounty, which, spoiler alert, is Baby Yoda, he has to leave the planet. Unfortunately, his ship has been ransacked by a bunch of Jawas who stole a bunch of the parts. He tries to forcefully get him back, but he isn't able to, and he has to engage in the barter system again in order to get what he wants. The Jawas want a particular egg. I guess they find it really tasty, and if he gets them that egg, then they'll give him his parts back. So he goes and gets the egg, almost dies because of it, and then he finally gets his ship parts back, and he has to put it all back together, which is not really a great deal, but at least he's able to get off of the planet. And this is how the Mandalorian changes. He realizes that, look, he can't always blast his way through things. Sometimes he has to negotiate and barter in a world that doesn't value the credit at all. He didn't have to pay anybody because nobody wants that. So instead, he has to use his skills and abilities in order to get what he wants. And he becomes a much better negotiator, and we see this bartering system keep coming up over and over again. But he still accepts the Imperial payment in the end. Why does that matter? Because later on in the series, we actually see some people accepting the Imperial credits, which means they're not completely worthless, they're just mostly worthless, and it's hard to tell who will actually accept it. So how does the Mandalorian get around that? Well, he can also diversify his currencies. He can take on a bunch of different currencies. Clearly, there are a lot of them in the galaxy. And the more he takes on, the more he'll be able to use those on different planets and different businesses. He may never become really rich, but at least he'll be able to get what he needs. And in economics, when a currency loses its value, people are going to inevitably lose their jobs, which luckily for the Mandalorian, he doesn't really have to worry about. But there is a movie that does explore what happens when people lose their jobs, and that movie is Frozen, where Elsa used to be the hero of the story, and now her entire rule is threatened because she is a jobs killer. And you can check that video out coming out next week right here on this channel, and I will see you in the next video.